How's it going, Diablo fans? So today I'm going to be showing you my Paingorger's Arc-Lash build, and this build is already aiming towards the leaderboard event. So this build basically has the fastest movement and teleport speed for all Sorceress builds. That means you can actually get around insanely fast if you play it correctly, but it definitely aims towards farming area of effect scenarios, so this is really not a boss killer build. So if you're looking for Uber Lilith or Duriel build, this is not the build for you. This is clearly for speed farming monsters which do not have bosses. And also one more thing I want to say, like the upcoming leaderboards had a monster level of 127, so I don't really know if that is true or not. But if the monsters really just will have a monster level of 127, and if their like HP is not going to scale like crazy for whatever reason, so we assume it's going to be rather like easier mobs we have to kill, then we all have to adapt to builds not doing like 15 billion damage a hit. We have to adapt to builds which can clear a lot of mobs, which have lower HP faster and which can get around faster. And with this build we pretty much have infinite teleports which can get us around crazy fast if we play it correctly. In an area of effect scenario, this build gives amazing clear speed because of the Paingorger's Gauntlet effect together with Arc-Lash. Basically spreads the Arc-Lash damage towards every single enemy which has been hit by a lightning spear, which is pretty much going to be every enemy whatsoever. And that results you being able to clear dungeons without bosses within like a very short time. For example, I cleared all walls below 3 minutes. Remember, my movement speed rolls are pretty terrible, so I only have like 15% on my boots and 15% on my amulet, so I could almost get like another 25% movement speed. So if I had those movement speed rolls, I could go even faster. As always, before we go into the detailed guide, I just want to make a quick explanation on how this build works in general. And for this build is a little bit more complicated, but also it is not overly complicated. So this build utilizes a couple of different synergies which makes it so powerful. So first of all, let's talk about speed. So we want to get around as fast as possible, and in this build we use teleport for it. So first of all, we have the teleport spell on our bar, which we put 5 points into, so we have a very low cooldown. We use cooldown reduction on every single gear piece, so we get this teleport cooldown down to as low as possible. Then we combine that with the teleport enchant, giving us yet another teleport instead of our evade. These two then get reduced by our overflowing energy. So we play unstable currents and overflowing energy, and together with the mystical teleport we're gonna hit additional enemies with crackling energy. But we don't actually play crackling energy, we just play unstable currents. So unstable currents makes crackling energy pulse without consuming charges, and you actually don't need a charge for this. So as we are playing the Flickerstep's boots, which is another component we are adding to the mix, whenever we evade jump a pack of mobs, right? So evade now is a teleport, and together with Raiment of the Infinite we jump a pack of mobs. Raiment of the Infinite is going to pull the mobs towards the center, and the cooldown reduction from Flickerstep is going to apply. That gives us infinite unstable currents, and infinite unstable currents makes our crackling energy infinitely pulse 25% faster, and we don't actually need to collect those crackling energies. So that then, together with overflowing energy, is reducing our teleport cooldowns again, which makes us teleport faster again, which makes us use flicker steps again, and so on and so on. Furthermore, the implicit of the flicker steps reduces our teleport cooldown whenever we hit a mob, and that is actually synergizing extremely well together with the flicker step, which pretty much gives us like a flicker step cooldown every like 1 or 2 seconds, something like that. So that basically being the movement component of this build, now let's come to the damage component of the build. So the damage component of the build is we are using Arc-Lash together with the Paingorger's Gauntlets. So what is going to happen here is, whenever a non-basic skill hits a mob, which in our case is lightning spears. So our unstable currents is spawning a lot of lightning spears, and the lightning spears are going all over the map and hitting those mobs, marking them for Paingorger's Gauntlets. We then telestorm them either with teleport or with our evade teleport and group them into like a pixel, and then we hit them. So what happens is Arc-Lash is an AoE effect. So let's say we have 10 mobs marked with Paingorger's Gauntlets. If we then hit this pack of mobs with Arc-Lash, Basically, every 10 mobs, like all the 10 mobs get hit by Arc-Lash, and every single one reflects the damage on every single other mob. For like a non-elite mob pack, this like basically instantly dies, but if you for example have an elite pack, it also dies extremely fast by that mechanic. And then also, obviously, our lightning spears are also going to be stunning and marking all the other enemies which are not even in our teleport range, and the Arc-Lash hitting in melee range is then basically spread its damage to all the mobs around us, which basically makes them automatically die regardless. We don't even have to kill the mobs entirely. So if you look at the footage closely, a lot of the times I will jump a pack of mob, hit it like 3 or 4 times until they are like at 30% HP, and then just move on. So I don't even need to like finish those packs, because those packs are gonna die later when I start attacking the next pack. If you want to loot, this might not be very important, but if we are in a leaderboard scenario, I don't even need to stop to kill those packs. I pretty much just have to mark them once and then continue to the next pack, and the last pack is basically automatically die behind me from the other marked mobs I hit. This then also we combine with the new aspect of adaptability, giving us a whopping 80% basic skill damage, and we also max out Arc-Lash, which just gives us a crazy high damage on those Arc-Lash procs. And furthermore, we can take advantage of the basic skill attack speed modifier, so we don't really need to waste any aspects into attack speed, because we're just going to put 15% attack speed on our helmet, we're going to put 15% attack speed on our focus, and we're just going to get another 25% free attack speed from unstable currents, and that just feels like to be enough attack speed to keep this going in a most efficient manner. One little side note, if you have Shaco, it's gonna significantly increase the power of the build. I don't have Shaco, unfortunately, but if you have Shaco, it's gonna add 4 ranks to teleport, and it's gonna also add 4 ranks to like lightning spears, which quite do like a little bit of damage. It's gonna add 4 ranks to Arc-Lash, which is pretty much the only way where you can actually get more than 5 points into Arc-Lash is with Shaco, and that is pretty much going to be doubling your damage right away. It's gonna majorly increase your survivability, and so it is really optimized for having Shaco. I don't have Shaco in the footage, so you can see I'm actually insanely fast clearing this even without Shaco. If you have Shaco, this is going to be significantly faster. Your teleport cooldowns are even going to be lower, like all your other cooldowns are going to be lower. The Arc-Lash is going to make more damage, lightning spears are going to make more damage, you're going to have more defenses, flame shield is going to last longer. So if you have Shaco for this build, it's just going to like be completely out of control. And a last side note, I know a lot of people are gonna say, yeah, but this build has no boss damage, I can't use it. Well, yes, it does not have any boss damage, that is true. But still, a tier 100 Nightmare Dungeon boss with this build takes around 30 seconds. So I can 100% guarantee you, whatever Sorceress build you're playing, you're gonna be 30 seconds faster within the dungeon, and then you're gonna kill the boss, and it takes probably like 20 seconds longer than, for example, with the Blizzard build. Well, who cares, right? You save yourself those 30 seconds in the beginning of the dungeon, so you might as well just kill the boss like 30 seconds slower. It doesn't really matter at all. Anyway, that was it for the short introduction, and again, you can find all the links to the specific sections of this guide, as well as to the planner with all the skill builds and dream stats and everything in the description down below. There's also a link to all of my other build guides if you're interested in that. And now, without further ado, let's go right into the skill tree. In this build guide, we have quite a few options to change, and we're gonna adapt this when the leaderboard comes out, but right now we just don't know how the monster level scaling is going to be in the leaderboards, so I kind of tailored it right now to be more like a tier 100 suitable. So we put 5 points into Arc-Lash, 1 point into Enhanced Arc-Lash, 1 point into Glinting Arc-Lash, then 1 point into Firebolt for the Firebolt enchantment. Then we don't choose anything in this cluster, and then we go for 1 point into Flame Shield, 1 point into Enhanced Flame Shield, just for the extra movement speed here. And then we max out Teleport with Enhanced Teleport and Mystical Teleport. We max out Teleport because right now we really just care about the cooldown of Teleport and the speed we can move around. In this build, we don't really need a lot of points, since we're not really gonna like need any core skills or mastery skills, so we can definitely get away with putting extra points into Teleport. If you have Shaco, this is even going to be way better, and you might opt to put these points from Teleport into like Flame Shield to have a very high uptime. Without Shaco, it just feels good to like have like these extra points in Teleport. Then we max out Glass Cannon and put one into Elemental Attunement, pretty basic stuff. And then we put one into Ice Blades, one into Enhanced Ice Blades, one into Summoned Ice Blades, just for the little bit of extra cooldown reduction here again. One into Lightning Spear, one into Enhanced Lightning Spear, one into Invoked Lightning Spear. So this is basically just for pre-stunning everything, because we are not having the best defenses in this build, so we heavily rely on Lightning Spear stunning everything for us. Then we put 3 into Conjuration Mastery, and you want to have another +3 in your Amulet, because Devouring Blaze is not going to be so great in this build, because we're playing Flickerstep and not Asus Boots, so we're not going to have a high critical strike chance. So I highly recommend doing Conjuration Mastery here. Then we put 3 into Align the Elements and 3 into Protection. The 3 Align the Elements really helps mitigating elite damage. Usually you would just put 1 point here, but since we are not spending any mana, we cannot use Mana Shield, so we put extra defenses into Align the Elements here. Then we put just 1 into Inner Flames and 3 into Devouring Blaze. Again, Devouring Blaze is too good to just not use it, but we are not going to have a very high critical strike chance. We're going to sitting like somewhere around 40%. So this is not the greatest ability in the book here, but since we have the extra skill points, we're going to choose it anyway. Then this is kind of the optional tree here, so if we're not going to need any like defenses or regeneration in the leaderboards, like we will completely remove this tree, but for now we just put 1 into Fury Surge, 1 into Endless Pyre, and just 3 into Worms. So we're playing Firebolt Enchantments, so everything is going to be burning, and this helps us getting like a little bit more survivability. Then we put 1 into Unstable Currents, 1 into Prime Unstable Currents, and 1 into Supreme Unstable Currents. Please note that we do not need a Crackling Energy Generator in this build. So in this build, we literally have 100% Unstable Currents. So Supreme Unstable Currents will make it pulse no matter if you have Crackling Energy or not. So you actually don't need Crackling Energy for this to work. So usually if you do not have like 100% Unstable Currents in a basic skill build, you would usually either go for like Destructive Chain Lightning here, or you would go for Wizard's Ball Lightning. In this, again, we have 100% Unstable Currents. We don't need any Crackling Energy. We're still going to receive the bonus from Supreme Unstable Currents. Then we put 3 into Causing Currents, 3 into Conduction, and 3 into Electrocution. This is damage reduction. This is movement speed, which we need a lot because this is a speed farming build. And Causing Currents actually gives us a little bit of extra critical strike potential here. And then last but not least, we put 1 point into Overflowing Energy. This basically just reduces our teleport cooldowns even further, so we can even get around a little faster than with, for example, choosing Verse Mastery or Asus Ferocity here. Talking about the skills, so we use Unstable Currents together with the Flickerstep and very high cooldown reduction rolls on pretty much our entire gear. We have a permanent uptime on Unstable Currents. This not only gives us free Crackling Energy, pulsing 25% faster, synergizing with the Overflowing Energy, but it also gives us additional attack speed, and it is a main source of spawning a lot of Lightning Spears, which then synergize with the Conjuration Mastery, and which also make enemies vulnerable and stun everything for us. So this is a pretty great skill for us. Then we use Ice Blades. We also have very high cooldown reduction on these ones, and since we are also getting like the reduced cooldowns from the Arc-Lash, this pretty much, we have a lot of Ice Blades out at the time, which also then reduces our cooldowns even further and synergizes with the Conjuration Mastery as well. Then Teleport, we really get around very fast. So as you can see, we have like a 5.37 base cooldown here on Teleport, and we have 5 ranks into it. So it is a really, really fast teleport. It's getting reduced by the Overflowing Energy once again. So we can pretty much teleport all the time. Then Flame Shield is a very important defensive layer. Since we are not running Armor Cap in this build, we want to have our Flame Shield up and running as much as possible. Arc-Lash is our primary damage skill together with the Paingorger's Gauntlet. This basically hits every single enemy on the screen whenever we swipe. So this is really just obliterating stuff. I only have it a 5 of 5. If you really have Shaco and you can get 9 out of 5 ranks in Arc-Lash, this is pretty much even gonna double the damage of this build. But I don't have Shaco at this point, unfortunately. And then, last but not least, Lightning Spear. We also put it on our bar, so in the rare case, we really don't have Unstable Currents, which it can sometimes happen, but usually it doesn't happen, and we can still cast it. Also, it counts for Conjuration Mastery. The cooldowns also get reduced by Overflowing Energy, so it's a good synergy to have Lightning Spear on your bar as well here. Then we run the Firebolt enchantment just for burning synergy. We're just gonna have a little bit of extra burning damage, but mainly we're gonna have like quite a bit of damage reduction from burning here. We have the Devouring Blaze, so this is pretty much a good enchantment to have in this build in general. And then last but not least, we use the Teleport enchantment. The Teleport enchantment converts our evade into a teleport, and together with the Flickerstep and the Raiment of the Infinite, this pretty much pulls all the mobs and hits them all, and also counts for the Flickerstep. So it's a pretty nice synergy, like these three abilities together. Stuns everything, pulls everything, and reduces pretty much your cooldown by up to 10 seconds whenever you like teleport using your evade. As for our items and stats and everything, this time we use like quite a few unique items. So first of all, we are using a helmet, which gives us basic skill attack speed, total armor, maximum life, and cooldown reduction. The basic skill attack speed, you don't really need the stat, but it makes the build a little bit stronger, but it's definitely not required. If you have Shaco, use Shaco. Like, no debate about this, okay? I don't have Shaco, but Shaco is going to make this build significantly stronger. Yes, you're going to lose the total armor roll, but we will put then the total armor roll on our amulet, and it's going to be just fine. Then, as our aspect, again, we use Disobedience here. We cannot use Juggernaut's aspect because it will significantly increase our evade teleport, and we really cannot play this. So the only option you have here is really playing Disobedience. That's why we're not reaching armor cap in this build. We're gonna get to like, 12 to 12.5k armor. Since the target for this build will probably be the leaderboards, and they seem to have like just 127 level monsters, it's gonna be alright, no problem. And speedrunning like the vaults, it works just fine. You die a couple of times, it just happens. Yeah, to get the random run shots if you're not at armor cap, but it's not really horrible. Like, I don't really die all the time. I maybe die like once every like second or third nightmare dungeon. So it's really not that terrible to not play this build with armor cap, since we have like this amazing amount of crowd control here. Then we play Raiment. Pretty much the stats on Raiment are completely irrelevant. Probably the maximum intelligence is the most important role here. The stun duration doesn't really matter all that much. So really, this is just for the effect, and the other stats do not really matter at all. Just having a 925 here is good for the extra armor, because again, we're running on low armor here, so we really want to get like every little drop of armor we can get. Then Paingorger's Gauntlets. So aim for the highest attack speed here, obviously, and highest critical strike chance. The other stats are not so important. And the 200%, you want to get close to 200%. Usually it shouldn't be an issue to have like a high roll here, but you can definitely also do like 150, 160, 170. They all work, right? It's just better if you're like a little bit closer to the max. The way Paingorger's Gauntlets work, basically, whenever you hit like a mob with a non-basic skill, it gets like a mark for 3 seconds, and after that, like every single basic skill echoes to that one and does the damage. It doesn't really echo the entire basic skill, it just echoes the damage of the basic skill. So it wouldn't apply, for example, if it's a firebolt, it wouldn't like apply infinite amounts of burning damage or stuff like that. It really just does the damage. It doesn't really hit another time with that skill. It just applies the damage. Then we use T-Balls. We have a very, very low cooldown on teleport, so basically we have this trigger to 100% of the time. So it's really like a no-brainer to use T-Balls here. If you don't want to do it, if you want to go a little bit more defensive, you can definitely just use a defensive chest piece with total armor, life, and damage reduction here. Sorry, a defensive pants, not chest piece. But I would recommend, since the target again of this is the leaderboards and not really vault farming, I would definitely recommend using T-Balls for the extra damage here. As for rolls on T-Balls, in this really nothing matters other than the 40% and a little bit of the damage reduction. The other stats do not matter at all. Then Flickerstep. So Flickerstep makes you have an infinite cooldown and an infinite unstable currents. So you want to have a high roll of the seconds. So 4 seconds is the best one, but you want to aim for something rough 3. Like if you only have like a 2.0 second roll, it's gonna be I mean, it still works, but it doesn't work that well. So really try to have like 3 or above roll. The other stats do not really matter. It is nice if you have a nice movement speed roll. Unfortunately, I have very bad movement speed rolls in this build, and I feel that. So you really want to have more movement speed if you're like running a speedrunner build. So technically, like if you could choose 2 perfect stats on these, take movement speed and the 4 seconds. Then for a wand, nothing special. We just get all stats, intelligence. Damage to distant is alright here, but you probably want to have like something like damage to burning. And maybe vulnerable damage would be probably good modifiers here. And then we put the conceded aspect on it. Then for focus, here I don't have the best focus here. You want to have critical strike chance, cooldown reduction, basic skill attack speed, and probably damage reduction from burning or something like that. I mean, this is alright. The basic skill attack speed is good if you have it. It is not mandatory, it works without, but I feel like it's nice to have the basic skill attack speed. As for the aspect, you want to have Stormswell aspect on here. Unfortunately, I ran out of Stormswell aspect, so I'm using Shredding Blades. It is not a huge difference, but ideally you want to have Stormswell on here. Then for our amulet, we want to get movement speed, cooldown reduction, ranks of conjuration mastery, and here it comes down to you want to have total armor roll. I don't have a total armor roll, which is why my armor is a little low. I can still get through the dungeons just fine. You can see the footage in the video, but you really want to have an armor roll here instead of the percent intelligence. As for the aspects, we go for overwhelming currents. So if you have Shaco, you will put Disobedience on here and it will completely fix your armor. I know you're going to lose an offensive aspect, but there's really no way around it. So if you have Shaco, you would play Disobedience on your amulet. Really don't have any other choice since you don't have any defensive piece where you can put it on. Then as for our ring, we use critical strike chance, maximum life, and 2 damage stats basically. So vulnerable damage and critical strike damage or something like that. Vulnerable damage, damage to close, whatever. Lucky hit chance he has wasted. We don't need any lucky hit in this build at all. But, you know, just get a second damage stat and you're good. As for the aspect, I use the aspect of adaptability for more damage on the Arc-Lash. This is definitely not mandatory. It helps a little bit, but it's not like not 100% the damage is coming from Arc-Lash, and I cannot even confirm if it works for the Paingorgers or not. I didn't test this yet. So again, if you're Shaco, you would put your overwhelming currents on here, but you can also play a different damage aspect. I haven't tested this out completely, so it will probably also work if you do just another offensive aspect on here. And then last but not least, we want to have Tarasha Ring. Really, the only important stat in this build, again, is the cooldown reduction and the non-fizz damage. These are the 2 stats we basically gain a benefit from. And you want to have, obviously, as close to 15% as possible here. As for our construct, we are going for Flash of Adrenaline as utility to give us an extra damage buff, tactical support, initiative support, so it ports to you when it's not next to you. This is like really a good addition here. If you have a unique stone, you would use the unique stone instead of this, and we're going to use duration support for it to last longer. And then on the other skill, currently I use Firefly to help with boss damage and single target damage. It really does quite a bit, and I really don't need anything else in the slot. I don't need vulnerable or any other application stuff from the pet. So basically I just use Firefly for pure damage. Firefly you use with seeking support, multi-shot support, and piercing support. So multi-shot spawns multiple Fireflies. Seeking makes them seek the enemies, and piercing support makes them basically go through the enemy and hit the enemy again. Really not much more to say about this construct here at all. It's a pretty straightforward setup. Firefly to help with single target damage, and Flash of Adrenaline to just buff yourself. We don't need any resource generation or stuff like that in this build, so we can really just use the construct like this. For the Paragon, again, I'm using a little bit more of a defensive board since we don't have armor cap. If it comes to the actual leaderboards and if they really will be just monster level 127, you can probably get 2 more offensive glyphs in this board, and I'm gonna show you how to do this later. So We start with the first board. We put Elementalist as pretty much always. We get additional auras and we get additional non-fizz damage. So this is like a very good glyph for the first board in general. I pretty much always use it here. Then we go to the next board. That is going to be the Static Search. So we start by taking these damage to stun nodes. We have pretty much like 100% stun condition in this build. And then we pick the Enchanter glyph here. So we use Enchanter glyph here because in this build I decided to go for a little bit more of intelligence to buff my overall damage, because we cannot really get so much great buffs from the dexterity glyphs in this, I feel like. And it also helps me to get my auras to like maximum, because we are basically not choosing a lot of defensive auras node, and we also not choosing the elemental summoner board here. So this is why I opted to put the Enchanter with the 75 int in here. And then moving over to the next board, that is going to be the Burning Instinct board. We pretty much picked this for the damage to burning, damage reduction from burning, and we put in our Tactician glyph to get the maximum amount of DR and burning damage here. Then we pick the Safeguard. Again, we pick all the armor nodes here. If we don't need this in the leaderboard, we will remove this and go more offensive also here. And then we go to the Enchantment Master board. The Enchantment Master board, we put in our Reinforced glyph here. So this is another defensive glyph. I basically also use it to buff my ore resistance, because again, we don't have great ore resistance in this build. So I want to get maxed. So that's why I choose Reinforced here. We just pick a little bit of non-fizz damage here. We pick pretty much the resistances here, and we just get like some more non-fizz damage in life on the left here, and then we already move over to the next board. That's going to be the Ceaseless Conduit board. We pick these movement speed when killing elites here. It really helps to make the build more speedy, because we don't really have the greatest movement speed in this build since we are not running Asus boots. So really these nodes, like, they do quite a bit. And, you know, I should probably change this to get another like 5 dexterity, because that's going to be a lot of 16% additive damage, right? And then we put in our control glyph here. I'm not playing Destruction in this build because, well, pretty much we don't have Asus boots, so we don't have a very high critical strike chance. Critical strike chance is just like somewhere around 40%. So really we don't want to play Destruction because we're not going to get like a very huge benefit out of it. I feel like with control and the 20% increased damage to stunned, which is pretty much all of the enemies all the time, we are getting here the most bonus out of control. Then moving over to the next board, that is the Searing Heat board. We pretty much just use it for the glyph. So the glyph is the Conjurer here. We want to have our conjurations last 20% longer. The damage on it doesn't matter at all. But if they last 20% longer, you know, we get more like synergies of the Ice Blades, and we get more damage buff from our Conjuration Mastery. And then moving over to the last board, that is going to be the Frigid Fate board here, the pretty standard setup. So we pick up this little DR from vulnerable nodes here, and we then very much put in Territorial. This is another defensive glyph I'm playing here, so if you don't need the defenses later on, we would go for Flame Feeder here, for example. And we're going to pick the Frigid Fate node for like a 30% damage increase. So again, if we don't need the defensive in the leaderboard, so here's what I would change, right? Territorial, remove that glyph. We don't need it. We put Flame Feeder in here. And then we have the Reinforced glyph here. This can also go, and it's this board you can do Dexterity or you can do Intelligence. But Intelligence we don't really have like a glyph which can benefit from. So you would probably put Exploit in here. So this is like 2 more offensive glyphs we can really play. There you have it. That's my Paingorger Speedrunners guides. I hope you enjoy it. And I'm really looking forward to taking this guide into the leaderboards. It's probably going to be this for my initial attempts there. And I'm now going to leave you the 4 speedrunning vaults again. And thank you so much for watching, and I see you guys next time.